So today I want to talk about social inequity and how Atlanta organization Mad Housers looks to bridge the gap. For the last 2 decades, Atlanta has been on the up and up. As the city's popularity rose, so did the amount of people looking to live within its limits. To increase draw in and boost the city's economy, Atlanta looked to a future of modernization. The people looking to move into Atlanta are mostly wealthy and desire cleaner, nicer neighborhoods close to the city center, which caused Atlanta to focus on fixing its more rundown areas. These areas are inhabited mostly by low-income citizens, who are mostly minorities, and modernization forces people out of these areas through gentrification. These people who are being forced out of their homes often become displaced and have nowhere else to go. This is because many of the surrounding neighborhoods are experiencing the same thing. Soon enough, living in the city becomes impossible for these people. This leaves them with two options. One, they can move to the suburbs and try to commute, or two, they can stay in the city and become homeless. Sadly, the first option is usually too expensive or impossible for low-income people, so they opt for the second option of homelessness. These homeless people hope to use the opportunity of sticking close to the city to easily find free resources and new job opportunities and pull themselves out of extreme poverty. But this is impossible when the city has left them behind with virtually no resources or equity to support them. The so-called haves of the situation, also known as the well-off of Atlanta society, aren't doing anything about this. Like the rest of the middle class and affluent society, these people believe that the poor and homeless ought to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, as we like to say, and use their own devices to save themselves from poverty. The problem with this thinking is that those who are able to pull themselves up by the bootstraps almost always have the access and aid they need to do so. They have a secure shelter where they can store belongings and sleep soundly. They have access to technology that can keep them in touch with employers and help in networking. And they have enough money to commute between locations and stick to a schedule. These are all simple things that the homeless in Atlanta lack, but it's these simple things that are vital to getting and sustaining a stable job. This is where Mad Housers comes in. Mad Housers' primary goal is to provide free, secure shelter to the homeless and displaced so that they have the leg up they need to get their lives back on track. They recognize that the bright future Atlanta society looks towards doesn't include the homeless, which is why they're so adamant about giving them the equity they need. Instead of trying to make the future fit with the homeless, Mad Housers helps the homeless fit into Atlanta's future. They're taking what they call the path of least resistance, which in this case works to everyone's advantage. Solely through volunteers, Mad Housers constructs temporary shelters around the greater Atlanta area. The homeless can stay in these shelters free of charge while they use it as a base of operations to work on improving their situations. Their small shacks provide warmth from the cold, protection from the rain, and a place for these people to lock up their belongings so they don't have to constantly lug them around. Each shelter costs only about $400 to construct and only takes about 50 total man-hours to put together, making it easy to fund and build. Even though it isn't required, many tenants of these shelters will come and help with construction anyways. There is also no building code restrictions since the shelters don't have a permanent foundation. As for land, Mad Housers builds wherever they can, whether it be in a forgotten piece of land that no one pays attention to or a homeowner's private property. They also take the precaution of scouting out each location before building to ensure that it is safe enough for tenants to live there. But even with those efforts, there are still issues that arise. Sometimes property owners change their mind or tenants get called out for trespassing. Rather than fighting back, Mad Housers just removes the shelters and looks for other sites to reconstruct in. They choose this conflict-free path because they understand that there is less promise in changing the vision of Atlanta's future than just conforming to it. Outside of building shelters, Mad Housers president Tracy Woodard suggests donating phones and MARTA passes to the homeless. While money can be useful, giving a resource like a train ticket or a prepaid cell phone can make all the difference in a homeless person securing a job and gaining stability. In this day and age, it is nearly impossible to gain meaningful employment without a cell phone. It keeps employers and employees connected and is the primary form of long-distance communication. Providing a homeless person with this resource, according to Tracy, can be just as effective as the shelter because it provides equity. Transportation is also incredibly vital, especially in a more spread out city like Atlanta. Job opportunities pop up everywhere, so it's important that the poor have access to some form of it. Otherwise, they're stuck walking, which decreases their number of accessible opportunities. Even one round trip ticket could give the homeless person the equity they need to get them towards landing on their feet. Tracy's advice, like her organization, follows a relatively unresistant path that aims to give the homeless a sort of leg up so that they can catch up to Atlanta's future image. Tracy and Matt Hauser's tosses aside the worthless notion of equal opportunity and acts according to the laws of equity. They understand that the homeless they serve never really had an equal opportunity because they never had equal access to the resources they needed to seize that opportunity. They understand that equality is the product of equity and that it is up to them to ensure the homeless get whatever share of that equity is due to them. Atlanta's vision for its future is modern, innovative, and clean. It leaves no room for consideration for the people who can't afford to conform to its aesthetic. This leaves lower income people with nowhere to go and nowhere to live. And from this, social inequity is born. With the help of Madhausers and other organizations focused on helping the poor and homeless, equity can be restored. And then everyone in Atlanta can have an equal share of its prosperous future and a seat at the table. Thanks for listening.